Welcome to the Wooper Club League Season 12 Conference Semifinals recap, down from 8 teams to 4. I am IllLogic, coach of the Buffalo Bouffalant, and as always, I'm joined by SteveChuck, coach of the Waterdeep Wobbuffets. Good to have you back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
I felt a little unhinged last time. Hopefully you'll keep me in check this time, but that will not stop me from recapping each of our 4 exciting matches. So here we go. We made it to the final 8, the conference semifinals, but who ended up in the conference finals, the final 4? Over in Johto, we had a candidate for match of the season as the Buffalo Bouffalant faced off with the Cincinnati Incineroar and came away with a crazy close 1-0 win, an easy feature match for this leg of the playoffs. But with only 4 matches in them all being high profile, we'll go over it here too. Turn 1, Annihilate looked like it's out trading Toxtricity, so it sets up a bulk up to take advantage while Toxtricity relents the matchup, getting up T-Spikes and goes down. Azumarill roll in for the Revenge KO, takes 68 from Rage Fist and Play Rough. Miss. Week 1 regular season, and this match, Spider-Man pointing at each other. What now? Wo-Chen takes very little, and after a taunt gets off the knockoff and Ruination to get 30%, while turning Terra Ghost after failing to predict a Drain Punch. Azu is sacked, and Gholdengo finally knocks it out. 1 KO and T-Spikes in exchange for 2.5 Mons plus the Terra. Brute Bonnet in, Slithering tanks, then 2 KOs, the Donphan switching in with help from Poison. Wo-Chen put to sleep, then sacked to Palafin Hero, but Gholdengo gets the Revenge KO with T-Bolt. It looks like it might be about even by this point. Pawmot gets the Achi Berry off of Garchomp, then revives Palafin, but Garchomp stayed in to get the KO, a ballsy play that paid off. Espathra in next, gets off a Calm Mind and KOs with the Dazzling Gleam, but it's down to 40%. It does 33% to Gholdengo then, and Palafin in. Jet Punch leaves Gholdengo at 6%, make it rain, plus Poison, leaving Palafin in range of 1 more round to poison the endgame here. What's the play? Swapping to Brute Bonnet, -2, make it rain, leaves it at 16%. Terra Water as Gholdengo stays in again. Brute Bonnet survives to KO Gholdengo, but finally goes down 2. With 2 mods left, the first impression from Slithering finishes off Palafin for the 1-0. What a match that I will go into detail on my channel, and Michael will provide even more unique commentary on this for each channel. Check out more on this feature match. So what of the other side of the Johto bracket? A grudge match between Chad CL Steamrollers and Michael's Route 1 Burbs, but it's looking less like a grudge match and more like a beatdown. The Burbs take their 4th straight W over the Steamrollers, knocking Chad out of each of the last 3 playoffs. Brutal. Iron treads out into Pelipper, who eats a Hydro Pump, then another Spider-Man meme as Sandy Shocks and Magnezone stare each other down. Spikes up for Chad, but Tauros takes half. Gengar gives Magnezone a pair of Spectacles, and Sandy Shocks take over half from resisted move. Wow. Tinglu tanks Sandy Shocks all day, gives another quarter onto Tauros, who does very little back to Salamence, meaning the Dragon finishes off the bowl. More hazards up at least to knock off the Slowbro, but Iron Treads brought dangerously low. Magnezone in for free on Energy Ball, which means the follow-up Shadow Ball doesn't KO, but doesn't KO Gengar back and knocks itself out with struggle on the Pelipper. Iron Treads boldly switching in on and styling on the Iron Moth, but it's wasting rain turns while Slowbro heals itself back up. Iron Moth tanks 2 Shadow Balls and gives Gengar finally. Floatzel finally out too and Terra's Electric, but Iron Moth is just sacked. Then as Slowbro comes in, Floatzel is out for Iron Treads, who is sacked. Sandy Shocks in and brings Salamence to 3%, but lives, meaning Draco Meteor KOs the Pelipper. Floatzel in and clicks Bulk Up, takes 58 from Salamence, 4 KOing Slowbro in. Terra Grass to resist Terra Blast and KO Floatzel back with the Grass type out. Sandy Shocks ain't gonna cut it. Slowbro finishes off Chad again with a different look this time as the Burbs just do not want to lose in the playoffs. Over in the Paldean Conference, did the Noctows finally meet their match? Can you believe I'd even try this bit by this point? Of course, the Noctows continue the march toward the finals. This is a 5-0 over the Quiet Majesty, ending their debut season. Starting with both coaches swapping out Fortress with early rocks, and shows it doesn't have much to stop at this match. GU in, of course, T-Tar is in to stop it, but this time it's Reflect. That's cool. But as Meowscarada comes in, Dragon Tail it out. That's a nice combo with the rocks and Sandstorm. The Noctows just catching the Majesty in the Vortex of Volt Switches from Fortress and Kilowattrel, but Sylveon looks like it's wishing up a bit, and Fortress slowly getting chipped down. Eventually, Great Tusk in against a 2/3 Toxapex. Where's the ground resist? Meow already down to half and needs to revenge, so Toxapex is sacked to the Headlong Rush. Sylveon in and 2 Hyper Voices. Fortress tanks them both barely, and with Great Tusk back in, Heavy Slam will KO from 91%, very impressive. Meow in and Kilowattrel tanks that pretty well actually. Sucker Punch does not KO and Volt Switch will finish that off. GU down to Aqua Jet on the blind double, and then as Pothra in with Calm Mind. Is this Greg's chance to come back? Terra fighting Terra Blast, 81% to T-Tar and Dragon Tail out, so Lycanroc forced in. T-Tar is sacked, but then Azu in for free with the Aqua Jet, and now a super effective player off to finish Espathra off. Without Dondozo even touching the field, it's another easy win for the 9-0 Noctows. And finally, the brotherly matchup again at Steve's Waterdeep Wobbuffets, easily taking care of Joey's Akron Agrons yet again. It just keeps happening. Roaring Moon early with a crunch on Screamtail. Sandy Shocks in on T-Wave and gets up rocks. He Electros a huge U-turn onto Roaring Moon, and Donphan with knockoff and Ice Shard to get the first KO. Quaquaval on the Revenge with Bulk Up back, and Sandy Shocks on the Reflect. Then on Wish, Sandy Shocks clicks Gravity. That's a very cool tech for that eel. Scizor in on Screamtail and U-turn back into Sandy Shocks. Donphan to immune Volt Switch. Knockoff onto Earthworm, and then back into Gengar to immune the follow-up Shadow for the Rapid Spin. spin, and then Shadow Ball KO is perfectly played there. Eel and Gengar trade some damage, but Joey, trying to get ahead of things, brings out Excalibur, only to get blasted by 2 Shadow Balls. Unfortunate, but Court Change puts rocks into Steve's field while Libero makes it immune to Shadow Balls, so that's a nice play there. Both of them doubling out Sandy Shocks and Skeldurge, but Joey stays in, and Skeldurge goes down in 1 Earth Power. Unfortunate, you're just out of ground answers. Cinder U turns out to allow Scream Tail back in. Terra Fairy, Dazzling Gleam to at least stop the shocks. Reflect, though, won't stop Scizor from murdering it. Gengar in on Giga Drain, survives with 2%. Sludge Bomb to KO the Eel. Pyro Ball does pick up the Gengar, but Terra Fire on Earthworm to resist. KO back with Body Press, the clean 3-0 from the Wobbuffets. And this is what happened in the league's quarterfinals. With that, we're down to only 4 teams, just the conference finals left. 2 awesome matchups here between the 1s and 3s, the Bouffalant and the Burbs, and the Noctowls and the Wobbuffets. Steve, it's nice to have you back, so I don't have to always talk about myself, but I had an outstandingly fun matchup, and the Burbs just keep getting the Steamroller's number here. So tell us a little bit about what to expect from the Johto matchup of the Bouffalant and the Burbs.
Yeah, the Bouffalant and the Burbs is the story of the 2 teams that have been doing the best the second half of the season. Bouffalant, of course, just dropping the 1 match in week 1, otherwise going on a tear. They were looking quite impressive throughout the regular season with, maybe a little bit of a stuttering as they got towards the end. A 4-0 versus the Laron, a 1-0 versus the Steamrollers in a very, very serious match, and then a 1-0 in the Incineroar against the Incineroar this past week in the playoff. So maybe showing a little bit of vulnerability, but still, having a dominant season. Definitely the favorites going in. The Burbs, on the other hand, very similar. They started out 0-2, and a lot of people 0-3. A lot of people, including myself at that point, were like, "Well, it's lightning can't strike 3 times," and here they are roaring back, winning 5 straight, losing in week 9, which is it wasn't a very important match for them, and they ended up getting revenge for that game, anyways. So both teams, a little bit on a hot streak with a splash of cold towards the end. So we'll see what that does. These teams did play in week 3, where the Bouffalant claimed their second win, a 5-0 win over the Burbs. A very dominant win from the Bouffalant. Since then, the teams are basically the same. There have been a couple of trades. I know Serena was traded out for the Burbs for Ely Dan, the Electros. So a little bit of a different look, but mostly the same. But yeah, based on the historical preference and just, earlier this season, definitely think the Bouffalant have to be the favorites going in. Nate, what are your thoughts on this match coming up?
Yeah, this should be a lot of fun. The first one, I think there were a couple of plays that the Burbs wish they could take back for sure. And if we see those corrections, and I think this would be a whole lot closer. I think from each side, there are a few standout mons. For example, the Burbs tend to have been bringing the same 4 or 5 mons just about every week. But if it keeps working, then why change anything? But I'm interested to see what kinds of adaptations they will have. Will they leave 1 or 2 of them on the bench? We saw the Bouffalant struggle a little bit whenever Garganacl did not come, and there was a lot of prep put into that. So what happens if the Burbs leave 1 of those behind? Also, for each team, we have a mon that is in contention for the KO lead. It would be Goldengo, seems to be the main one now for the Bouffalant, swapping back and forth with Azumarill, and Iron Moth getting a ton of work for the Burbs there too. That should be a whole lot of fun to see. Again, you'd have to think that the Bouffalant are favored, but you know what they say about the rematch. After you've just won that first one, and you may have shown your hand, may have shown what works, and now you're caught in between, do I do what worked last time, or will the opponent know what to prep for a little bit more, as opposed to the other way around. Oh, this worked last time, I'll just go for it again, or do I anticipate them to make that adjustment? It seems a little bit tougher for the team that won, so this should be a very good match. But the same, I think, can be said about the other one, too, Steve. The Noctowls and Wobbuffets met much later in the season with lower stakes, so tell us what we should be expecting about this. Give us a little background on your match over in Paldea.
So yes, the other side, of course, being the Newport Noctowls and the Waterdeep Wobbuffets. As mentioned, the Noctowls have not lost yet. They are the only team so far in either conference to go undefeated, having a really strong season, not really even any close games. I believe a 3-0 has been their closest game against teams like the Agrons, the Kinglers, and the Wooper Troopers. But they were always in a dominant position. On the other side, the Wobbuffets have had a couple of stumbling games against teams in a similar rankings to them, dropping games to the Majesty, the Troopers, and at the end, of course, the Noctowls. Talking about that Week 9 match, these teams did play Week 9 when both teams were locked in for the playoffs. The Noctowls, additionally, were technically locked for the 1, although we physically played this game before the Noctowls had played their Week 7 game. So I guess at the time there was a chance that if they lost both, they could lose the 1 seed. So they did have to take it somewhat seriously, but they also would have to blow big games and have someone else get too big of wins to really lose that. So it is very possible the teams left a little bit behind, trying to hide a little bit of strategies for a potential rematch. I know some people have poked some fun at my Life Orb Agility Dragonite lead that was definitely a little off the wall, trying to take advantage of its special move pool and the coverage it gets there. Did not end up doing much, especially considering the Wackenberry on Azumarill that prevented the Dragonite from really doing much of anything. But yeah, definitely some options for both teams to have some different strategies that they thought of not too long ago, but decided to wait from that not so important Week 9 match, and we'll certainly see them this week.
Yeah, I think
what are
a couple lots to highlight here for sure is that Great Tusk leading both conferences in chaos by a significant amount, not just one match or 2 matches. The Great Tusk seems to be doing plenty of work all over the place, and frankly I think on your side too it's going to be a battle of the ground types. Sandy-Shock seem to have found new life in the second half of the season from both you as well as the Steamlers whenever they picked it up. Sandy-Shock's putting in a ton of work as well, and interested to see what kinds of answers they're going to be for the ground offense that we saw dominate the Agrons just last week. Also interested to see if there could be any weather shenanigans here too. It could be a fun weather war with Torkoal on one side, Tyranitar on the other. Both of them having very good coverage into each other too, and facilitating some interesting ideas in both teams. So I think that could be really fun to see if one of you or both of you decides to bring that as well. I would think the Noctowls have to be favored here, but once again, the Noctowls did take it the first time. Maybe some interesting ideas emerging. Really, really exciting and fun stuff here, Steve. That's going to wrap it up for us relatively quickly again here. Hopefully we can get a little bit more here for the finals match lead up, but do note that both of us are actually still involved in the conference finals here, so there's a possibility that we may invite other folks on or do something special for the lead up to the finals, just to make sure that we're not too super biased or involved with anything like that. Let us know down below what kinds of things you want to see with the finals. We have a few different ideas churning around here, but always interested to hear some feedback to see how we can make this experience even better for you all, the lovely viewers. With that though, we'll see you next time as we recap what happened in the conference finals and set up for the big finale for Season 12. We'll see you then.